And welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the United Nations General Assembly today. Diplomats from Arab, Muslim, and African countries, as well as several from European nations, staged a walkout. Netanyahu remained defiant, telling world leaders that Israel must, quote, finish the job against Hamas. Here's a little more of what we heard.
To the remaining Hamas leaders and to the jailers of our hostages, I now say, lay down your arms. Let my people go. Free the hostages. If you do, you will live. If you don't, Israel will hunt you down. If Hamas agrees to our demands, the war could end right now.
Former U.S. Ambassador to Israel Daniel Shapiro joins me now. Great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I understand you were up in New York earlier today. I would just like to know, what were your reactions to what we heard from Netanyahu there?
It was a defiant speech, Caitlin. I think the audience was primarily his domestic audience. The UN is not considered friendly territory for Israel. Of course, we saw the walkout. Israel feels isolated there, and it is isolated right now. So many countries are looking for a way out of this war in Gaza. He wanted to demonstrate to his public that he's not cowed by that pressure. Unfortunately, at the same time, he didn't offer really a pathway to the end of the war. The hope is that in his meeting with President Trump on Monday, he will pick up some of the diplomacy that President Trump was working on earlier in the week in New York when he met with Arab leaders and put out some principles for a pathway to end the war. What Israelis want is this war to end and their hostages to come home. And so he didn't offer much about that other than defiance. Maybe that comes Monday.
And you know, to that point, Netanyahu has said, and he said again, that the hostages will be, once they're returned, the war will end. Is that really how this is likely to play out?
Well, Israel's looking for more than that, and I think even President Trump laid out a bit more than that as well. They want Hamas to be disarmed and really to be removed from power in Gaza. And that's true really for almost all Israelis, that after the atrocities of October 7th, they can't accept Hamas remaining as the governing authority in Gaza. So there are plans and efforts underway to install a different first interim authority and then to bring some sort of Palestinian authority leadership to come to take over some of those responsibilities as well. It's got to be done gradually. It's got to be done carefully. Security and reconstruction and humanitarian needs all have to be met at the same time. But that's in addition to getting the hostages out.
And the Prime Minister there also was attacking other countries who have been recognizing a Palestinian state. He said that, quote, murdering Jews pays off, that this sends a message that murdering Jews pays off. I'm wondering what you make of that in the context of what we're seeing from other countries declaring this.
Right. A number of countries did make that decision to recognize a state of Palestine that doesn't really exist yet. So it's a bit of a showmanship by those countries as well, and perhaps responding to their own domestic constituencies out of concern for the pressure they're getting. What he's trying to say there is that if there's going to be a future Palestinian state, which he opposes, but even other Israelis who are more open to it would say it shouldn't be done in a way that is seen as a reward or a victory to Hamas after their attacks of October 7th. It should emerge later through negotiations, through a gradual process, ensuring that something like that could never happen again. So his is a rather extreme way of saying it, but I think it's a broadly felt view among Israelis. I think President Trump and many American officials have expressed it as well, that that question should be done in a way that doesn't seem to reward October 7th.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, too, because it had been longstanding U.S. policy for a two-state solution. In your view, what is our policy now?
That's a great question. That's a great question. It's true. Since the Clinton administration, or at least the first Bush administration, the second George W. Bush administration, it has been U.S. policy to pursue a two-state solution. President Trump didn't really pursue that in his first term. He said one state, two state, whatever they work out. Then he put out a plan that sort of kind of had a Palestinian state at the end of it. He's got to put together a real post-war plan now, and that's a critical ask that the Arab states said he needs to participate in the rebuilding of Gaza want. They want a pathway to a Palestinian state, so that's going to be on the table for a decision.
And do you think that needs to be announced by the U.S. before these negotiations or discussions that he has with Netanyahu?
I don't think he'll announce it before that, and I don't think he'll announce it in Netanyahu's presence. Netanyahu said again today he's against a Palestinian state ever of any kind. But I think there is going to be a process that is going to be put in place as this war winds down, hostages out, Hamas removed from power, reconstruction of Gaza for Palestinians who want to live peacefully alongside Israel, and some pathway that identifies a future goal of a Palestinian state so that Arab states who really need that for their domestic constituencies can say they are participating in building that future.
All right, Ambassador Shapiro, thank you very much for your insight, and we'll stay tuned to those discussions.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Caitlin.